Hello, you'll know that most of the videos here on my YouTube channel are chemsex focused, mostly about support and advocacy. But this one is different. I'm introducing you here to a novel that I've written, my first. It's free, because I'm like that, and it's called A Loud Exhaust. So it begins with a day that our 5-year-old protagonist called Kill Kill Day. It's a violent and prophetic day in which he witnesses his mother being shot and killed by his father. Then, after being taken hostage and a police chase through the suburban streets of 1970s Adelaide, the father shoots himself, orphaning our young protagonist. This day, this Kill Kill Day, was just a splash in a putrid pond that would send out ripples of consequences that would last for decades. Bent on a path of self-destruction that to him just seemed like coping, he'd become a charismatic and charming influencer of others. Popular and handsome, he'd never be satisfied though with mere self-destruction. His charm and his trauma and his groom would drag as many others down into destruction and trauma with him. Such was his torment and such was his power. Having survived an abusive foster family, he was sex working and diagnosed with a terminal AIDS diagnosis in the early 90s. But surviving that wasn't enough for our troubled protagonist. He sought and found more damage, more destruction. Addiction and drug dealing afforded him some solace from the trauma. But in true idiosyncratic style, this was high-profile damage, glamorous globe-trotting decades with weekend Concorde trips to New York and ridiculous extravagance, so much money. But he was haunted by a nihilism and a trauma that was so big, so charismatic and so huge that he could have shifted the world off its axis. In his wake, he spread HIV, an addiction and further trauma, and he knew that Piper would come calling. It did, with a drug bust and a court case, full of drama, as if he knew any other way. So this novel tells of a turning point in that life, the desperate attempt to avoid the same suicidal fate as his father. It tells of a traumatized person becoming self-aware of his damage and destruction and trying to make amends despite the shame and despite the odds. And he does good. He gives back, he becomes an activist hero, he champions a modern healthcare epidemic. He devotes his life to generosity and kindness, but always nipping at his heels, like hounds from hell, and like his father before him. He could never escape the haunting reality that Piper always needs to be paid.